Okay, so welcome everyone to the Cosmic Ascension Waves of Light. Today's date is the 4th of October 2024, and it is precisely 8:25 in Ireland. So this evening we have Brian Tseng, who's rejoining us. We did an interview, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, perhaps last week, but yeah, I'm just so excited to be here with you again, Brian. So where would you like to start?
I know before, yeah, I know that before this video, we began going on the air here, this recording, we were discussing the tragedy that the very man-made weather warfare tragedy that has hit Florida all the way up to Georgia, to Tennessee, ravaging Carolinas, absolutely. And you said that you had a download or a vision, and I definitely am always curious to hear this type of information and knowledge that's being relayed down to us here, and then perhaps we could go from there.
Okay. So I'll start off then by sharing what's happened the last couple of days. I've had download and also a vision. Normally when I get a download, it comes through in either words or audio, as if someone is talking to me. And sometimes I'm able to see those words, and sometimes it's more audible where I'm just taking dictation. But with that, I also get an image of what they're describing. So I kind of work in two threads in that way when I'm downloading. Predominantly, that's how I work. So recently I've had a vision and a message, a download of kind of what's to come in America. And I can see the hurricane or bad weather moving across from Florida, moving across kind of in a line, very much in a line. It might kind of go up and down a little bit, but it's more or less kind of middle America, going from the East Coast to the West Coast, to California area. I don't know how far up or down it goes, but and it might not be one singular event. It might be several different events, but that's what I see. I see the weather moving from the east to the west, to California. I'm not sure how far down it goes, if it goes into Mexico. And I'm not sure how far up it goes in, but it's all that coastline, California, and going up to, I think it's Vancouver. Am I right in Vancouver? Yeah. And then you've got British Columbia above that. So I'm not sure how far it goes up. I don't see Alaska being affected. And I believe you've got Cancun at
Yeah,
down at the
Mexico,
bottom.
by the Baja Peninsula there of
Yeah,
Mexico.
yeah. I'm not sure how far it goes. But I know that Sasha Stone, I know he set up a center there. So I did. I used to have. I did in a couple of interviews a few years ago with Sasha. So I used to have his WhatsApp number, but when I moved over to Ireland, I had to get a new phone because my old one broke actually on the day I left the UK. So I did have Sasha's number, but I don't now. But I did message him on Facebook but I think he's actually in Turkey. And I also have another friend in California who I messaged before I released. I did a broadcast earlier. One of the emergency call outs that I do, which I don't like doing at all. But so that's what I've been shown, is that the weather goes from east to west, and then it's kind of in a line, and that it's going to be happening within the next. I'm very reluctant to say this, but happening very soon.
I
Very,
can
very
speak to the. I have some interpretation there for you.
okay.
Yeah. It's basically confirmation that this weather warfare has been occurring in this country, literally from coast to coast, up and down, from south to north as well. And basically, the yeah, the no part of this country is going to be spared. And then in terms of it being imminent, it's already on the weather radars that there are these other hurricanes that are very much shaping up. And so, and then you look at the Paradise fires in California, all the other what look like directed energy weapons fires up in the Canadian area as well. It's like they don't need to bother with Alaska because Alaska isn't part of their Agenda 2030 map, as far as I know. And so all these regions are under 2030, where the other side, the so-called globalist elites, they want to take over all these lands and drive all the people in these beautiful countryside areas that are very mineral rich, in the case of the Carolinas there, into the 15-minute concentration camp cities.
There's a lot of information you shared there that I wasn't aware of, or vaguely had heard. But whenever I get an emergency message like that to do with the weather or a prediction or an event, I'm always so reluctant to, and I've had that information a couple of days. I've been kind of checking it within myself to see is this accurate? Is this because I don't want to be putting out anything there that big that has the possibility of not being genuine, and so I'm very cautious with the emergency broadcasts. I did put one out a few years ago to do with London, and it was a similar thing, not on such a not it was on a much smaller scale, but I'm always very cautious to put out information like that.
Well, Carol, if I may, can I share my screen? I think you need to enable it. Let me show
Yeah,
some of
please do.
the data and evidence so that we don't have to go out on a limb so far. And sure, this is for entertainment purposes only. Oh, also, by the way, is the background noise? Do you hear like a background vacuuming in the background of my thing?
I
Cool.
don't.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're good. Okay, for the broadcast quality here. Okay, so then yeah, I'll pull up some stuff on my screen.
So
And
how do I need to
so
share your screen?
yeah, well, because you're the host of this Zoom meeting call, I believe there's like on the bottom it would say share screen, and then you have to click on it, and then you have to enable share screening, or yeah, screen sharing rather.
Oh yes, sorry.
No worries.
Okay, so check.
So I can share it. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Oh, now you're sharing your screen, but there's a way, actually now you're sharing your screen. I guess maybe close that and go back because we need you to allow me to share my screen.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what it looks like from the host side there. And I don't know if you can right click on the share screen and then maybe it'll. Oh, now I can share. There you go. You did it. Perfect. Okay, so This is my own page on Facebook, and people have been sharing stuff here. You see these radars or these
Yes.
arrays? Okay, these are able to radiate and ionize the atmosphere. Okay, these and other apparatus, I believe known as Gren towers. So these are known as Doppler radars, and they're ionosphere heaters, and they're used to manipulate the weather. There are 1,716 radars in 131 countries and territories. And let's see. These are actual screen captures of weather radar, where it shows, people are calling these weather radar anomalies. And what it looks very clearly is basically they're beaming certain frequency patterns into the ionosphere, probably using these radar arrays. Okay, and so let me see if here's one, and this radar anomaly. Okay, so you see these swirls here. See those green swirls that are popping up? That looks like that's them. The other side basically using this radar apparatus to heat up our atmosphere. And in heating up the atmosphere, they're able to then drive the storms. And so what you see here, these are clear frequency waves, as someone else is pointing out. And you know, this looks exactly like the patents, which are easily found online. And so these are definitely suspicious radar anomalies. And what people are saying, and I totally 100% agree with this, is that the cloud seeding in our atmosphere is basically increasing the ability of these signals to heat up the atmosphere and microwave. It's like having all this aluminum and other metallic particles in the atmosphere. That's to heat it up in some cases. And also to nucleate clouds, seed the clouds so that they can have much more heavy rainfall. And then of course, who knows what this does to, you know, the rest of the world's climate and environment to have this done. And the lamestream news media, they're not talking about all the dead bodies, you know, and how many people are dead and are washed up. They're not talking about the rescue efforts of private citizens that are being thwarted by even local fire departments, I'm sad to say, and especially by FEMA. And that is a very coordinated thing that has happened so many times in all of these incidents, whether it's like Maui, where it looks like they were directed energy weaponed and burned out, where FEMA has erected this giant black fencing that's surrounding all the area. And it's like, well, why are they doing that? Why do they have to make it impossible for residents to get back in, access their things, assess the situation, try to find lost pets, you know, and all the normal things that you would expect of a proper emergency management agency. And they do the exact opposite. And what many people, and I also agree, allege is that in this case, it's a big land grab for the quartz crystals behind or underneath that land, as well as the lithium, but especially the quartz for semiconductor production. And that's the world's only location for that type of quartz of that purity that's needed, apparently. Yeah, and there's so much more.
Can you just go back to those large devices and share that again on your screen?
Yeah, these are Doppler radar systems.
Okay, they look very large and
oh, they're huge. They're huge. Some of these are in these giant platforms. They look like they're oil drilling rig platforms. And I think the disclosure is that one Jodie Foster movie, Contact, I think might have had one of these type arrays in there. There's one of these movies.
I have to say that the film Contact, where she goes into that circular ball, I've actually seen that myself in an experience that I had, and I know that other people have as well. Those things are very real, But this is not the same thing, is it?
So you can utilize similar technology to accomplish different results.
Okay.
So you could use this to scan the atmosphere, check our weather. You got your channel 5 news radar, weather maps. And then you can use this to then even pulse energy at different frequencies into the atmosphere. So now instead of a passive scanning the atmosphere, you're actively working to control it and manipulate it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify something there then. So there's a device for the audience listening in the future. So there's a device in a film called Contact with Jodie Foster that is a very real device. And I had an experience years ago about this. And I've written about it in my book, and so it's dated and everything. But the devices you were showing, yeah, thank you, Brian. So the device, so in the UK, what they're doing with when the negative agenda is putting up things like cameras and 5G towers or whatever they're doing, there's a lot of footage on Facebook where these people are now cutting down or getting rid of devices that are being put into our
The
society.
Blade Runner movement, I'm a huge fan.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm wondering, how hard would it be for people to do you see where I'm going with that?
So this is my understanding and analysis of it, is when you're dealing with essentially militarized forces, okay, it very rarely works in the civilian population's favor to try to counteract military forces. What are you going to do? Like you got like wire cutters to get through like one layer of barbed fences to get like through another mile of security to get to some huge installation that is so industrial scale. What are you going to do there? And I don't think that's the approach. I think that's where I see the full disclosure movement coming in, to name the names, show people, the vast majority of people who are asleep to this, what is really happening in a very cogent, coherent manner that they see as impacting their own lives and families. And then in doing so, having people now, okay, the programs aren't secret. Okay, now they can't just manipulate the weather from coast to coast with all sorts of shenanigans and effery without the population knowing. And that's the best way to stop them, in my opinion, is in a coordinated, and then that's part of the evolution of the human race in our society.
Yeah, I know that you're right. It's just sometimes when I see these things, the warrior spirit in me is really comes to the forefront.
Well, for me, it's choose your battleground, right? It's like
Yeah,
that's why the Blade Runners, okay, yeah, your camera on a pole in your neighborhood harassing and monitoring everybody, or maybe beaming nasty frequencies at people, perhaps. Okay, yes, cut that thing down. Okay. Oh, can you hold on 1 second? I just have to let me
yeah,
just answer one thing here. This is at bank home.
I've put you on mute. So yeah, just while Brian's on the phone,
And I'm off now. I'm off now. I just have to
okay,
authorize something.
okay, great. Yeah, you have to unmute, Brian. That's great.
Yep. And I'm good.
Yeah, so I'm wow, I'm definitely learning something from you here this evening, Brian. Um, and because I don't research stuff, I'm not a researcher. Very occasionally, when they give me sometimes when they give me information, I do go away and research it. But I've done that like maybe 4 times since 2009 or 2010. But very rarely do I research anything.
I researched almost let's say jokingly 24/7, because
Okay.
I'll wake up and I'll there's certain sites or certain social media among them that I'll check to see what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I just like, I feel so, um, I whenever I get information like I had the last couple of days to do with the weather, it always leaves me with a bitter sweet taste in my mouth, or feeling. And my feeling lately has been of um
If you've been getting a sick feeling because things
yeah,
haven't been feeling right, they've been feeling off, they've been feeling
yeah,
unnatural, they've been feeling way too heavy beyond what Mother Nature would normally be throwing our way, not just on the East Coast of the United States, but all over the world, where we're seeing really horrible, horrendous weather, landslides, floods, and all that.
yeah, all of that, because I know that it's man-made. Um, I may not have been aware of all the, like you are, of all the devices and contraptions and technology that they're using, but I'm very aware, through the channeling of their intentions, and what they are doing through technology. And it's just horrendous, and I did a video earlier to try and let people know, but it's really difficult for me, because I get so censored and shadow banned on both YouTube and Facebook, and no doubt others, but those are the two main ones where, um just the other day I had a video taken down of an interview I did in 2020 with Mary Rodwell, and they took it down just a few days ago. So um it can be hard for me sometimes to reach people. And then, of course, with my YouTube channel, the subscribers go up and down and up and down. So as soon as someone joins, um, somehow they've unjoined, like
Right.
10 minutes later.
Right. So this is the
Yeah,
sneaky algorithms that they use to ban us, shadow ban us, censor us, and throttle us.
yeah, yeah. So, guys, if you're listening, please go and watch my message. You can find it on Substack, Soma Arah, and you can find it on YouTube and also Rumble. More importantly, Rumble. So I have so many questions for you, Brian. I don't know if you want to talk more to that, to the weather manipulations and the hurricanes.
Well, I could speak to the agenda overall,
Okay.
and it's really nice to have confirmation, right? Here, there are people on the research side of things, and our ears are to the ground as best we can, and through our friends from these areas that are directly affected. And then here you are, more on the beyond the veil psychic side, and it sounds like all the information, the downloads, the impressions that you're being given is in correlation with what we're saying. It's not like, oh no, everything's fine and this is just natural. That doesn't seem like the downloads you're getting. It seems like your downloads that you're getting is, yes, there really is this cabal type of milieu who are doing their best to manipulate the weather, create disaster and chaos, and then they're going to bring their supposed order out of it, which is never favorable to us, the people, and always favorable to these Luciferian wannabe elites.
Mm. Yeah, and there was a couple of things you mentioned earlier about, I think it's FEMA, where the money is they're so obviously
I can
part of
speak
the.
to them. I can speak to how terrible they are and how far back they go. FEMA and before them, the Red Cross have a very long history of putting forward a very beautiful advertisement poster image of themselves, but then behind the scenes are actually party to much darker, nefarious, terrible things. Okay, and the Red Cross and selling blood is the least of the terrible, horrible things, to my knowledge. Because I have an organizing background, I've worked with groups from California all the way back to the East Coast who have dealt with these agencies and groups in times of disaster, because when these groups have been organizing drives, working with migrant farm workers and native local farm workers, doesn't matter, it's farm workers in general, but they're all low paid, and service workers in particular as well. You're going to see them serving a lot of the same communities that get hit by the disasters, and then Red Cross or FEMA comes in, and then now we see what really happens. And so one example was in California back in it was either the late 70s or the early 80s. I don't know the exact year pinned down here. There's a Santa Cruz organizing drive, and there was a very bad series of California wildfires in that region. And the local organizing drive, I think it was Western Service Workers, they organized a circus tent, literally, like Ringling Brothers type thing, to be a disaster relief center. Okay, because there'd been it's like maybe there's earthquakes or fires, or some of the buildings were unstable, and they had to set up. Anyway, they're doing all this amazing disaster relief for the community, with the community, and a Red Cross truck pulls up in front of the circus tent. It says Red Cross on it. They've got a film crew with them, and then they film this disaster relief effort as if it was Red Cross doing all this, and that's what they ran on the nightly news with their phone number to say, look at the great work we're all doing, and send us the donations. And what they did is they set up a Red Cross truck with coffee in front of this, in front of the real organizer effort of the people on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. FEMA, especially after 2001, September 11, Department of Homeland Security and all that, they've really always been an agency. The joke is in their name, Federal Emergency Management Agency, which for the dirty federal government to manage these emergencies in their favor. And so we're talking about literally, there are reports this happened after Katrina. This happened, I believe, during the LA after the LA riots, the Rodney King riots. I mean,
yeah,
not the Watts riots, where they'd go in and they'd basically terrorize people, disarm them, take their supplies, and leave them live or die. And that was especially in the case of Katrina. There's testimony of people getting shot at by these agencies, trying to leave these areas, to tell the tale of the reality on the ground. Because what do you know? They don't want the reality of what's happening on the news for people to know about, because they want to traumatize people, but they also want to keep the body count down, because they don't want people rising up to do something about it.
Yeah. And I've seen some people, I've seen some interviews where people are talking about FEMA who I've only heard of very recently, over the last couple of days with Hurricane Helena. People have been talking about FEMA, and they've been saying, please don't give to FEMA, because, and I wanted to mention that, because it's not going to the people. It's not going to the people. And I've known about the Red Cross for some time, because of the information that's been downloaded to me. So I know about Red Cross, and I know about the children, and I know about the blood, and the even the trafficking with the children and the Red Cross. They're not a good charity. and a lot of the I won't give to charity. I just won't give to charity anymore. I'll give to
Yeah.
people, and I'll give to
Right.
homeless people.
And the people on the ground, there are some great organizations on the ground,
Yeah,
and you'll know who they are because they're of the people, amongst the people. They're not in
yeah,
an ivory tower in Washington, D.C. or London or, downtown San Francisco.
yeah, yeah. So people, if you're listening, do give to money, but do give money, and whatever you can, but please don't give it to the Red Cross or FEMA or the likes of those.
I'll give some
Um,
examples. There's
yeah,
testimony right now of citizen journalists and just locals who are on the ground in these regions where they're being told, like they're private helicopter owners flying over to the broken up roads, delivering water and food supplies and uh, um, shepherding people out or
mhm,
schlepping them out of the area to safety, and they're being told, no, this is a no-fly zone. Or there's a guy with a garbage dumpster company where they're filling up dumpsters with all the flood garbage, and meanwhile they got rats going all from dumpster pile to dumpster pile, and they're being told by FEMA, okay, no, you're not allowed if you're a commercial truck to use any of these specially allocated dump sites. Okay, only regular non-commercial trucks with no signage or lettering on it, the normal residential vehicles, consumer vehicles, not commercial trucks or anything like that. And they're being told, well, what do we do? We've got all these dumpsters full of people's stuff. Don't just dump it right back where you found it. FEMA will get to it over the next year. The guy's like, there's rats right now and people need help right now. And you want to, yeah, that's literally FEMA. There's other reports where they'll go in with armed gangs of FEMA agents and they'll literally rampage and terrorize the civilians. And of course, there are reports of white hats are going in and countering these bastards. And I personally believe that's happening. And I support the patriots who are dealing with the scum. They should be
absolutely.
eradicated.
Me
Yes.
too. Me too. That's the warrior in me rising, where yes, I'm a channel for the Pleiadians, um, but I have a very strong warrior nature in me and we need to take action. We need to stop giving our power away and letting things just ride, and just I think we're done with observing with everything that's going on. We need to take action. We can't just give away our power anymore to the doctors or the lawyers or the politicians or the TDs, as they're called in Ireland, and the powers that be, because these governments, these sick people, are not human. They are negative ET
They were
beings.
human. They were human. And they sold themselves out to these dark, archonic, negative ET demonic beings. They did
Mhm.
it through rituals. They did it through signing contracts. They did it by doing the bidding of their masters and selling out the human race to the best of their ability, slowly but surely, while reaping the material rewards. They took the blue pill, if you will, to get that fake steak dinner and wine, which is really the flesh and blood of their fellow people.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but I also think that um at the downfall of Atlantis, there was a group of negative ET beings, reptilians, who overthrew Atlantis. And it's very it's very significant, the downfall of Atlantis now, because we're in the reversal, or what the Pleiadians call, to me, the reversal of Atlantis. And so we're going back to a time of Atlantis, but we're not even doing that. We're going beyond the time of Atlantis. So we're advancing very rapidly into a time of it being more advanced than we were in Atlantis. And one of the
Yeah.
things one of the things I wanted to mention there, Brian, was I'm going to stop talking in a minute because I really want to hear from you. But one of the things I wanted to mention was I did hear, I watched some of those videos where the the man with the helicopter, where he was turned back and he wasn't allowed to go, and I believe he ignored the legal advice, which was great, because and also because one of the people was his son. So I don't know the name of I think it was a police officer that told him to turn back. Um,
I think it was a local fire services marshal person, and this is, yeah, and this definitely, it is online. There is an uproar about this.
these
Um,
people need to be
yeah,
held. I'm so sorry for cutting in, but these people need to be held accountable because, oh my God, people's lives are, this affects people's lives. This is an emergency situation where these people need help now, not when FEMA has done their bullshit paperwork, or when they've siphoned off the money that's been given into some fat politician's bank account, like Hillary Clinton has already previously done
mhm,
with
yeah.
another event that was similar, where she was,
Haiti,
yes, thank you, where
they
she
collected billions, and
yeah.
barely anything was ever built in Haiti. And then a lot of children disappeared. And then that's where the Laura Silsby scandal and the two busloads of Haitian kids comes in, where they were literally caught on the border trying to kidnap them out of Haiti into the Dominican Republic. And as either Bill Clinton or Hillary, I think Bill personally had to go down to clean up that mess or cover up that mess and get Laura Silsby out of there, among others, keep her and others from being lynched. And then back up here now might be for the great state of Georgia, or that region. Laura Silsby, she's since changed her name, might be because she got married, and is now an administrator in charge of the Amber Alert Service, which is in charge of tracking missing people and getting the word out here in this country.
It's like, it makes me so angry that um the whole situation. And yes, when I'm channeling, I'm in a very different energy, but when I'm in my kind of normal mode, like now, I just, that warrior spirit really comes through, and it's very like, we need to take action and stop watching these predators, because that's what they are. They're reptilian predators that are ruling our governments, and the likes of Camilla, um, or Chameleon, whatever you want to call her.
Well, I call girl Kamala. Basically, her deal is she rose up through the dirty ranks of elitist Democrat California politics. She, at the age of, I think it was 29, when Willie Brown was around 60, and with his wife being pregnant, had an affair with Kamala Harris in City Hall, and she was a prosecutor at that time. And she
Sorry, I
rose
thought
up.
you were going to say something else there, but
Well, they were having an affair, and
no.
through all that stuff, she rose up to become the district attorney. And then also she had a fling with Montel Williams somewhere in there. So there's your Hollywood elite Illuminati club. And because the whole Willie Brown, very famous, well-known California, longtime politician, genius, and for the political sphere of California, if you will, when he made his money and reputation off San Francisco City Hall, he helped kind of keep the dynasty going through Gavin Newsom and well, Ed Lee before that, and then Gavin Newsom, and it looks like the other side in their wet dream, and I'm surprised that they didn't do it already, that try running Gavin instead of Kamala. My feeling is maybe Gavin had too many skeletons, or maybe they got the real Gavin Newsom, so now they don't have him to run, and they're stuck with Kamala. But she's totally horrible and dirty. Um, there's a lot of dirt on her, but basically she's just scuzzy, and slept her way through the top to the top. This is a very known thing. It's like Joan Rivers saying Big Mike. And yeah, it's people like that who make the best puppets for the controllers. They need people who are pliable and who will do their bidding without asking questions.
Mm.
As the one banker, Ronald, uh, I forget his full name. He was a Dutch banker. He was told that he would have to put his conscience in the freezer, and it was one thing, laundering money, but he couldn't do it when he knew it was happening to young people, or when they asked him to participate in a ritual, there's no way he could do that. This is very well depicted in the movie They Live, where it shows that basically a bum, I was called a bum, who sells out to the negative ETs to sell out humanity. And now he's got a mansion and he's running around in a
Mm.
tuxedo, at the most posh parties with the ETs, while humanity is left to fend for itself in the gutters.
Yeah. And even with everything that I've seen of what's to come over the next couple of months, and with the weather being a lot sooner, I've just seen it happening over the next week in America, going from the east to west coast. But even with everything I've seen, I still see a positive outcome. And something else I wanted to so going back to Camilla, do you think that, because I've been into thoughts of two different kind of thoughts. One is that she's possibly is a transgender, and the other is that she may be a clone.
So those are both possibilities, absolutely. And then they could have transgender clones either way, and then release them out in the public. And then so you'll see a clone with a dong, and then you'll see a clone without one, and it's like the same, you think it's the same performer up on stage, and you get a really good close up. So what's going on? Or maybe did they just have a fake, one of those fake prosthetic penises or something in their panties while they were up on stage, and people were getting, the close up candid photos. Um, I think it's totally possible. I mean, in the case of Joe Biden, that's clearly a double. You don't go switching from right hand to left hand, or I forget which way it was. His signature changed. He had an anchor tattoo and hairy arms. The anchor tattoo went away, and the hair on his arms and legs went away. His face totally changed and morphed, from the old real Joe Biden, which is very recognizable, to like I call him the Deliverance baby with a banjo Joe Biden. Um, and so, just like Putin got swapped out, I think it was around 2011 or 12, and he went from killer KGB Putin. He was much more sallow looking and pale, and psychopathic eyes, at least very aggressively oriented, versus the new Putin, who's like teddy bear Putin.
Yeah.
He's kind of pudgy, more Winnie the Pooh, and that was around the time when
Winnie the
Putin's,
Pooh.
yeah, right, and when Winnie's, sorry, and when Putin's real wife at that time, original wife, left him, and she was literally quoted as saying, "That's not my husband. I know that's not him. I don't recognize that man."
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And one of the things that I've heard recently is that Putin has been censoring Russia. So there's a lot of censorship via the social media, which surprises me because I'm very much for Putin and Trump. And
Well,
I do
this
know,
is, I got to
oh,
speak to that. I
yeah,
have to speak to this is I think it's wonderful that we bring this up, because here you and I, you're from a classically British background, right, Samara? And this is where the whole historical lessons of first the long-standing Russian Tsarist empire, into the Civil War and the Bolshevik Revolution before, during, and after World War One, and then going into World War Two. You know, Putin, from that standpoint and in that historical milieu, doesn't have the same democratic type of ecosystem to operate within. And then also, Putin one or Putin two, a Putin, KGB ties, being thrown in that mix. It's all about information warfare. And especially here in the US, it's no different. We call it a different name. We don't call it Pravda. We call it, CNN, right? The Russian newspaper that everyone used to read, Pravda, or Soviet newspaper. And the narrative is controlled in so many ways, whereas the current pedo Biden administration is going to wave that flag of freedom and democracy. These and the Republicans have done this too successively. They're the ones signing these Patriot Act type legislations into place, where a camera on every corner, not a chicken in every pot, but a tracking virus on every iPhone and Android. And so I think Putin is just much more honest about what he's doing. It's definitely much more gangster in Mother Russia, where you're going to have much more openly the Russian Spetsnaz or special forces under Putin, or his direction, running around cleaning up house. And here, I think that's also happening behind the scenes as well. It's just disguised much more here in America and in the Western world, UK as well, I'd say. We're being played a movie, just like the Queen mum. I don't think she died this year. I think she died like 4 years ago. And then they had Operation London Bridge to basically have their continuation of succession and all that. And it's obviously failed. I mean, Prince Charles is the flop that he was always destined to be. And here we are.
And he's got there's a video there. There's a video I've seen of a young little Indian boy. I don't know if you've seen this. Yeah.
I have. I'm trying to figure out if that was real or not, and if whether or not it was real, it's totally believable. But yeah, where it looks like they're at Buckingham. He's at Buckingham Palace. Looks like a 14-year-old, not even, boy trying to use a curtain to climb out of a fifth story or so window, and he makes it down about 1.5 and then falls the rest of the way. And then apparently there might have been some palace guards who had also observed this while the onlookers were filming this, and they were laughing. But I'm not sure if that was real or if that was like a deep fake. And then they're going to use it to say, ha ha, all these conspiracy Q-tards that we took the bait. But either way, there's so much well-documented stuff out there that clip, real or not, it's 100% believable.
I've been shown, so in front of the palace, in front of Kensington Palace, there's a huge area of green, a huge space of green in the Hyde Park, but just in front of the Kensington Palace. And I've been shown beneath that there are vast tunnels and spaces and that is very linked to the children, that they are I don't even want to finish that sentence, but they're very
you've got the Red Shoe Club, you've got the Ninth Circle cult, linked to the Vatican, linked to the royal families, linked to the Freemasons, and all of those different occult orders, secret societies and orders that have been there for so long. Just like the catacombs under Paris and the ossuaries with the bones of tens and tens of thousands of people. It's like, how did they all get there? Arranged so ornately, almost very, ritually and masonically, perhaps. This is definitely, this is the things that the full disclosure movement is exposing, whatever you want to call it, the awakening of the people, all the victims and their families. Just like bones being found underneath buildings owned by the Vatican all over the place. It's the same thing. And the tunnels. I've seen footage online of houses where they discovered under tunnels underground leading to like little temple type chambers way deep underground after you go all the way down after going through the trap door. It's wild. And the Playboy Mansion was Hugh Hefner was Epstein before Epstein. Just most people don't know it because us in the community, of course, and there's photos of them digging up, and also prior when they were first building Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion in California, and it shows there's tunnels underneath there.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people say that during the Vietnam War, when they were bringing over kids from Cambodia and Laos using the Playboy airplane jetliner, a lot of those children probably ended up into this ritualistic abuse and as sex slaves and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and I recently watched some videos where there was no word spoken. It wasn't an audio video, but it was a video, a very short video of Diddy's house, and then it scanned over to I think we might have spoken about this before, but then it scanned over a bridge, and then it scanned to the large storage units, which is just across the way from Diddy's house. So, and also with the, I heard something recently where there is strikes because they've been hearing children's cries from the. Would you speak to that, Brian?
Yeah. Apparently
There was
one
two
reason
things
why
there.
the longshoremen are going on strike, it's not just over wages, working conditions, and lack of benefits. It's also the fact that they are getting sick and tired, the dock workers, of hearing banging coming out of the ship from the shipping containers of the hapless victims of the human trafficking. And they want an end to this. They know this is happening, and the authorities are turning a blind eye. At a certain point, they're facilitating it. And also, there are reports that a lot of the strike is also in relationship to the handover or handback of the shipping ports here in the United States from the International Maritime Corporation, or I'm probably getting the name wrong, and handed back over to the real United States of America. And that's why there's also a lot of military presence around a lot of these places.
Yeah. And I think often people fail to realize the fact that all these systems that govern us are working in conjunction with each other, and that seems to be coming to light mostly to do with the P Diddy, where there has been involved. I mean, Camilla, for example, was pictured at one of his parties. So there is like all these systems on earth. The governments, the military, the big pharma, the school system, every system on earth.
They
They're
thought,
all
yeah,
working. together. So
they thought that by consolidating their big club that we ain't in, that they would create such an unstoppable juggernaut Death Star that by the time we woke up to all of this, it would be too late. And the joke would be on us and how clever they are. And it's absolutely backfiring and blowing up in their face. Because at a certain point, when they've all got blackmail on each other, it only takes one or two cards, really, to fall for the whole house of cards to come tumbling down.
yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I think that when COVID kicked off, I think they didn't realize the backlash and how people would rise up and step into their sovereignty and start waking up and realizing what's actually going on. There's a much bigger picture here at play. And recently, I've also heard about a second moon, and there's so much going on astrologically. Have you heard anything about the second moon? Because I haven't had any.
I've heard of
downloads.
this. Yeah, I've
Mm.
heard of this. I believe Ileana Star Traveler on YouTube. It's a great member of our community and survivor of the secret space programs, very much a targeted individual. She did a remote viewing of this, and it might have been of the moon, of the second moon, and it might be one and the same. But she's got something about a world builder space station coming our way. And I don't know if that's the second moon that people are talking about, or if that's just a separate thing, because there's a lot of video and photos online already of these giant, they've got to be giant motherships coming out of the sun, or flying over the surface of the moon. And they must be pretty huge. So I think it might be possibly a Galactic Federation world builder type craft, or some kind of benevolent type race thing, or maybe a malevolent. Maybe it's the bad guys. But that's more what I would suppose, is instead of a big chunk of rock that they only figured out is there like this month, versus a giant spaceship, and they're calling it a second moon. And then meanwhile, people are observing that the current track of our regular moon, the one we all know and love, seems to be off a bit. People are like, wait a second, it's not in the right part of the sky at all. Or it's not even in the sky when it should be in the sky for our time of year relative to us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
And they did say that the moon, in one of the channelings, they said it's that the moon is not real. It's not real, and they've shown me underground tunnels in the moon.
So it's real, but it's not natural. It's not
yeah,
natural.
It's a man-made object. But
Well,
I haven't.
reptilian. It's a reptilian-made object.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I believe so, because I believe from the galactic history that I know, the reptilians a long time ago, as they were building out their empire, encountered a race of like wolf people humanoids or lion humanoids, and this race, part of their sneaky technology was to carve out asteroids and to ride them in as basically armed space stations into space systems, solar systems, and then emerge out of their asteroid en masse and then swarm whatever planetary systems they wanted to take over. Yeah. And the reptilians learned this technology, or helped to develop and master it off of these guys, the Wolfen Kings. And that may be where the lunar technology in part may have come from. And then the moon, there's a Proselenians, the people before the moon, were referred to in various historical accounts, and in native traditions as well, talking about the time in the sky where there was no moon, and when the moon came.
This is fascinating. Let me just press that button. So maybe we could, I know that time is getting on, but could we pick this up where again in another session to do with the moon and some of the galactic wars, and there's a couple of experiences I would like to share with you, maybe not now, but one of them is where I was taken up to Mars, and I didn't know it was Mars at the time. It was only afterwards. And also an experience with the Greys, and some more some more information of downloads that I've had to do with all of that, and to do with the moon as well, and Mars. And also I heard recently that I read a story recently on social media about the Chinese, where they've actually built a satellite, and they've built it in such a way that it looks like a moon, and they're planning to put it in place. I don't know what year, but then I heard the story of a second moon, and I'm wondering if because they always do things first and then tell us. So
Right.
I'm wondering if this is the same object.
That's possible. It's totally possible. I know the astronomers supposedly then the lamestream said, "Oh, it's there, but it's not going to be easily visible or visible at all with the naked eye." So who knows? I know that there's some company out there apparently developing an artificial sun technology, basically a giant spotlight in the sky, where you can pay them to deflect sunlight down to you, or artificial light down to you, so you can have a day during the nighttime, artificial daylight. All this is pretty wild and mind blowing, but when it comes to technology, again, because humanity isn't just developing this technology on its own, got all this ET contact, the good, the bad, and the ugly. All bets are off as to any given time what technology can pop up and be introduced to our society.
And I was speaking to a friend the other day who lives in California, and the same guy I was talking about earlier. And he was saying he can very clearly see that the likelihood of our lifetime where we do actually walk out the door and we see and we visually see UFOs and spacecraft flying around, very visible, and I can see that would be very possible in our lifetime, given where we are today. But also I want to add that was a fact in history. We were at a point in history where the common man and humanity were very well aware of UFOs flying around and objects in the sky, and had and that's also kind of linked to Atlantis, because because we were at such a high frequency level. Most of us in Atlantis, all of us in Atlantis, excuse me, had the ability to channel. So we were all in direct contact with our galactic brothers and sisters and star nations. And we're going back to that era now, which is why there's been an influx of so many channelers like myself, especially coming forward these days. But I think that's highly possible. I think that's where we're going back to. And you can see that in a lot of the artwork. There's often UFOs depicted in very old paintings going back hundreds of years. So anyway, I don't know if you want to take a break, or
take a break. Take a break. Yeah, take a pause.
Okay. Okay, so I have another question for you, Brian. I know what my take on it is, but what is your, who do you believe is running all these different systems?
Yeah, so basically at the human level, you've got these wannabe elites who are, you know, at the corporate level, and you see like the Illuminati pyramids, I'm sure. So you've got the corporate people, and so all the people are trying to buy into that Illuminati pyramid scheme, and they're only going to get so far. And then you've got all the bloodline people, including all the bastards of these so-called elites, bloodline people running around out there that they're assigning the grunt work to and to be their front people. And those bloodline families themselves, you've got the what's known as the 13 bloodline families, but then there's really a secret 13. So the public 13 are like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Vanderbilts, okay, and you know, the Kennedys, right? But then you've got the more even Illuminati occult hidden 13 bloodlines. It's like the Orsinis. That's the Gray Pope is one of them, and like the all the Italian and Transylvanian sounding names, and then there's apparently also the 13 secret space program bloodline families.
Yeah.
Okay, according to like the Kruger and Arasaka family. Kruger's German, Arasaka's Japanese. It's from the World War II lineage of the German and Japanese breakaway civilizations. And then over them, you've got certain gray beings and the Anunnaki and the Draco reptilians. And then even above them, you've got archonic, demonic, Luciferian type forces that they themselves, the reptilians, are in league with to enslave humanity. And so they're getting humanity to worship their same masters, maybe with different names and faces, but the same dark service to self energy.
Yeah.
And what I've been told by John Whitberg is that when it comes down to it, the Earth and our solar system, think we're like Madison, Wisconsin, and then like this larger region would be like the United States, and then like the larger system is like the rest of the world. And think the Draco reptilians, they own the US and everything in it, and then they're like leasing Madison, Wisconsin to the Anunnaki underneath the Draco reptilian overlordship overall.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? It's interesting there that you were mentioning the 13, because that's a section in my book where I was told about the importance, and I was only shown a glimpse and told so much information at the time. I wasn't told everything at the time, and still haven't been yet, about the 13 and what it represents so many things. So I was told about the 13 crystal skulls, the 13 strands of DNA, the 13 astrology signs, the 13 tribes.
Well, exactly.
13. But I was only told about so many different things of 13, so 13 crystal skulls, and I can't even remember all of it, but it's in my book. But you're mentioning a lot more, and some of it I wasn't aware of.
Well, a couple things here. If it's number 13, you can't ever have a 50-50 tie. So then you're always going to be able to make a decision if you've got all 13 decision makers. At worst, it's going to be a 6-5 split.
Oh, that's interesting.
Or sorry, not 6-5. 8 or 7. What you said, 7 and 6 split. Okay. And then it's probably the negative occult elites, or just the negative side in general. They're always ripping off of source creator. Yeah. So probably source creator somewhere is 13 councils of 13, and then the other side, they're just doing their own inverted version of that. And then as far as bloodlines go, it's all about inbreeding. The higher percentage you have of certain genetic ancestry, the greater the ability you'll have to hold some of these negative reptilian archonic energies here in the physical, which suits their ritualistic purposes perfectly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And these days I don't see much difference. I don't see any difference really between the words negative reptilian, ET, or reptilian and satanic. I see it all as all being the same thing, coming from the same source, including the Vatican and especially the Catholic Church. And I know there's this a vast array of things beneath the Vatican, and in other places as well, with it, with but the Vatican I always see a very clear image of that more and more often. So I'm wondering if they're going to download some more specific information. But yeah, thanks so much for tonight. I know that you have a very busy schedule these days, but I'm very much looking forward to doing more of these and hearing more knowledge.
I'd love to. Well, one thing before we go about the Vatican, I can say that via our good friend Arkheim Ra, he was in the Montauk projects and the secret space programs as well, on various 20 and back time travel and kidnapping, secret military tours of duty. He also has altars or soul fragments from other timelines. And one of them is named Edward Hughes. And we did a 2-hour-long interview with him on our Disclosure Now podcast recently. And in that he talks about how he's so basically a parallel Earth, the year 2028. So it's, for some reason, it's 4 years ahead of where we are now. We think that Edward died at the age of 73 over there on that parallel Earth as an Australian man who was involved in some of these secret space programs over in that Earth. And when he died, somehow he has a soul fragment relationship to Arkheim here, and that's how he's popped over and is able to manifest or channel through Arkheim. And what he says is in his timeline, that Earth, it's a much more positive timeline. From the perspective of these archonic forces, they never got a foothold here on Earth. The Vatican, they were a thing that got wiped out not too long after it began. It didn't get to last all the way to from like 300 years after Christ to like modern day. They got stomped out early, and those archonic forces never got to take a foothold here. And their Earth is a much brighter place for it. I'm hoping that maybe after we go through all the apocalypse and revelation that we're going through and about to go through, that perhaps we could achieve an even brighter timeline than what they've achieved over there because of the hardship and struggle here.
Yeah. Can you just mention his name again? Because I'm sure, because I would like to watch that as well.
Yeah, it's Edward Hughes. Edward Hughes on the Disclosure Now podcast.
Okay.
And what I'll do is, why don't I share my screen?
Yeah.
That's what I'll do. I'll go back and share my screen here.
And there is something I'd like to share about that, just very quickly.
Again, I'm listening.
Okay, so at the beginning, when COVID kicked off in the UK, I went into the garden and channeled the Pleiadians because I hadn't channeled them for a good few years previously. And one of the things they showed me is that at the time, I think it was January or February, they showed me a very intense energy hitting the earth at the time. And this huge energy came down like a torch or a beam of light, similar to how a torch would look. But this was a huge, intense energy that was hitting the earth at the time, either in January or February of 2020. And it was going to increase and intense and increase and intense. And it would reach such a high intensity that it would actually cause the earth to multiply into 2 earths. And one would, go, bear with me here, and one would go into a higher frequency vibration dimension, and the other would stay where it was, or it would drop into an even lower frequency vibration dimension. And so I really, for years, I'd been asking, how is it possible that we can have two Earths? And then that in 2020, they explained that very clearly, visually and audibly, how that would happen and how that would occur. Because I've heard of Dolores Cannon's work and how we have two Earths, but I never really believe anything unless I get it from the horse's mouth or the Pleiadians. I've since been shown that it's not just two Earths, it's multiple Earths and multiple timelines. So that really ties in with that information. Okay,
My
so
favorite, yeah, Edward Hughes.
okay.
And yeah, my favorite Mandela effect right now is go find your print Bible, open it up to Isaiah, I think it's 11:6, and where it used to say in print, the lion shall lay down with the lamb, and now has been altered to say the wolf shall lay down with the lamb. And that is a very in-your-face quantum effect to show how reality can be shifted and changed. And I wouldn't have believed it until I checked out my own Bibles here. I was like, wait a second. It's one thing for them to change the language online and get away with it digitally, but it's quite another to find every Bible in print on the earth and alter it. And I very clearly remember growing up, I as a Chinese American, I went to Chinese school, to learn Mandarin Chinese every Sunday. It was at a local church. Usually they would hold these, local churches said, yeah, you can use our facilities to teach, kids like, Chinese kids in the community Chinese, right? And I remember like the murals, in these churches of like, the lion and the lamb. It's never the wolf shall lay down with the lamb, ever. And then in the reading, some of the reading that I've done in the Bible myself, I remember specifically it was the lion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's funny is every now and then, as I've been asking this, it seems like I'll run into somebody and they're like, wasn't it always wolf? And what that tells me is maybe they're from their timeline that we got altered into. And so to them, it's perfectly normal. But so, in a way, we're all time travelers and we're all getting gamushed together. It just depends on what timeline we're going to and ultimately end up on, especially as they begin to diverge between, as Dolores Cannon says, the higher Earth and the less high vibrating Earth.
So for everyone listening, go and check out Brian Tseng, the Solar Bee, and also Edward Hughes and Kate or Kat.
Yeah, Kat Aphelion.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Brian.
because Arkheim and Kat are boyfriend and girlfriend normally. And then here she is. We have his name instead of Arkheim as Edward Hughes because Edward Hughes altar is there. And anyone going to this, you're going to see Arkheim for an hour and 32 minutes speaking in an Australian accent. And only rarely when he gets excited does he come out of it. Not really. It's just him speaking through Arkheim, it seems. And it's pretty wild. The level of information and detail is excellent and amazing and very consistent. So I highly recommend it. And I put it in the chat in case you want to include it in the show notes.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. If you could, because I don't think I can retrieve the chat messages. So if you could message me in Facebook and then I'll put it into the description, and please send me your bio for everyone that I can put it in the description box. So we do you have anything you would like to share?
The main thing is, we began this interview with discussion of weather warfare and the vision that you had, which I believe is spot on, and unfortunately, spot on and very pertinent. I consider this to be the single worst attack on American soil against the American people ever. So that's really the context that we're approaching this in. And the more of us who are calling it out as being exactly that, weather warfare, and not freak nature or climate change, the better. Because then it makes it harder and harder for the other side to continue to get away with this stuff. And that is really largely up to us.
Yeah. It really is a war on humanity. It's not just a spiritual war, it's a war on humanity. And I find it sickening, and because I can see the devastation that it will cause in my mind's eye. So yeah, with all that said, love wins, and I shall see you very soon.
Absolutely. Perhaps we'll continue this as early as next week. It seems like because we're able to navigate the time zone difference between the UK and here in northern Nevada. And in the meantime, if any audience members have any questions, please put them in the chat. And because I like to revisit my interviews from time to time just to see what people said. Because I used to be one of those people, leaving comments and really enjoying the shows and learning a lot. And if you'd like to participate with the Full Disclosure Now movement, please reach out to me directly on the Dumpster Fire that is Fake Book. Try sending me a direct message. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, so if anyone would like a personal channeled readings, my website is somaarah.love. And Brian, you have an event coming up in July next year.
Yeah, it's going to be once again at St. Pete Beach, Florida, which got walloped like the rest of the southeastern seaboard with the weather warfare. The Serrata did sustain some damage and got washed a lot of sand into it, probably on the lower level there. But they're still functioning to the point where amidst their repairs, I think they're offering accommodations to people who've been negatively affected by the storm. So I'm really happy to be going back there and doing what we can to support that regional economy, because it's been so battered and beat up by all of this weather warfare. This isn't the first, probably not going to be the last, but hopefully it's the first that people really recognize what's going on.
Yeah.
And also, I'd like to sign up. I'm going to get to your website for a session as well sometime soon.
Oh, lovely.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, I love channeling sessions. I have to admit it. I don't like as much trying to do QHHT where someone tries to put me under. It doesn't seem to work.
Yeah.
It just not so far at least.
Yeah. I have free. So I do a weekly group every Saturday, 7 p.m. UK time. Actually, Irish time. I hate saying UK time. But Irish time, 7 p.m. every Saturday, where I do free channeling with a group of people. I call them my team now because we know each other so well. So you're welcome to join us tomorrow evening if you want to step in and do that. They sometimes do answer personal questions as well.
No, please put the link in so now I'll be able to click on that along with everyone else. Or message it to me, depending on the nature of the group.
I'll message it to you because it's a closed group.
Yeah, the message to me. Okay, perfect. Yeah. That'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Bye, Soma Arah. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Give my love to your wife.
I will, and the little one. I'll send you more cute little video clips.
Yeah, I do.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.